So with pastors and leaders, in this event, Rally for Our Lives, which is going to be at honorhiscross.org, Rally for Our Lives, honorhiscross.org, we have three objectives. One is engaging the Christian non-voter. We've talked about that. The second is to engage the pastors. So pastors, we get it. A lot of pastors, because I speak to so many pastors and know so many faith leaders, I understand it when you share that you are afraid of losing your tax-exempt status by the topics we're covering here. I understand your fear of losing donors. I understand your fear of dividing your congregation. You have people, good people, in your congregation that are from both political parties. I get it. I also understand your consternation about separation of church and state and those issues. So here's what I would like to encourage both pastors and the people that are watching this out are not pastors, but you could talk to your pastor. Here's what I want to encourage you with. Please consider that governance is a God idea. It's not a man idea. It's not a Republican idea or Democrat idea. It's a God idea. Even God the Father, look at the organization here, even before Adam and Eve were created. You have God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. You have organization. When God created Eden and put man there was organization. He said, hey, here are fruit trees, here are trees for food, here's gold, here are minerals, here's water. I want you to leverage all of this. I want you to have dominion. I want you to subdue that. And I want you to prosper and multiply all of this. Governance is simply organizing people and resources for the benefit of the people and the environment that they're in. So this is all part of what God had orchestrated right from the beginning. So today, pastors, even though you may be reticent about endorsing a political candidate or even a party, if I may be blunt, there's no excuse for not engaging your congregation in governance. And governance is simply urging your people in your congregation to engage in what matters with how the governance around them is managed. It's your school board. Who's running for school board? It's nonpartisan in many parts of the country. And most of the people that get elected are people that want, as John and I were talking about earlier, minors getting permanent surgery that alter their gender without parental awareness, like John mentioned.
Do you know that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you touch a nerve. Do you know that you cannot rent an automobile from Hertz or Avis or rent it, budget unless you are 25 years old, Q? 25 years old. Yet these people are passing laws and instituting policies that allow children under the age of 18 to make life-altering decisions for which I don't think they're prepared to make at those young of an age. If that isn't justification to go to the polls and take a stand, I don't know what is. Do you know, Raj, I read that 14% of the pastors, only 14% of the pastors in the United States today are willing to tackle issues that could be deemed political in nature.
It's startling. I heard another stat that there was even lower, but let's get the benefit of the doubt. And when we look at that, we can recognize that there's a fear element why pastors don't engage in those things. And so pastors, fear is it's the opposite of faith. We cannot allow ourselves to operate in fear. What you can do, to John's point earlier, when I said something and hit the nerve, because the people in your congregation, just like John and I and yourself, are incensed with this vulnerable place that the most vulnerable of our community are in. So those decisions that John mentioned earlier, and I mentioned earlier, that's happening in school, that's handled by a school board. If you're not asking your congregation to get involved in the governance of their school board, who will? Well, it's going to be the people that are pushing the agenda. As we all know as pastors, a vacuum doesn't exist. When there's a leadership vacuum, whatever is available will flood into it. And so on honorhiscross.org, you will see testimonials and messages by other pastors encouraging you to and showing you how they are engaging their congregation. If you can simply, like John mentioned earlier, the pastor is the most efficient way to scale this. If a few of you could embark on encouraging your parishioners to engage in governance, this whole dynamic changes. Your parishioners need you. They trust you. They're relying on you. Every other place that they go for leadership has failed them. The political leaders have failed them. Business leaders have failed them. Even many religious leaders have failed them. So your role with your local community is vital. So I encourage you to be like Joshua in Joshua chapter 1, where Joshua was also in a situation where he was afraid, and the Lord said to him, hey, Joshua, do not be dismayed. Do not be discouraged. Every place that the sole of your feet shall tread, I have given it to you. Be courageous. Be strong. So pastors, please take that and I encourage you to consider what we're sharing here. We're not telling you what to do, obviously. We're just sharing to you that right now, the fate of the bride of Christ, the fate of our country and the children, not to mention all these other issues, are literally in the hands of the Christians. We are the ones who will decide where this goes.
Well, just as a case study, Raj, I had the good fortune as a young, newly married individual to attend a church in Atlanta, Peachtree Presbyterian Church, with the senior pastor, Frank Harrington. Now, Dr. Harrington and I became very close friends. He was one of my absolutely one of my heroes in life. And he did not ever shy away from a social or controversial issue. I have vivid memories of him talking about the women's right movement and the pressure for women to go into the workplace. And he took not an opposite view, but an alternative view that staying at home and raising a family was a very noble cause and was sanctioned by God, and he had biblical support for his position. He would talk about pornography. He would talk about song lyrics and that parents were not aware of what their children were listening to. He quoted Prince from the pulpit one day, and I thought every blue-haired lady in the church was going to pass out and fall into the aisle because the lyrics were so vile. And he said, I know I've shocked you, but these are the lyrics that your children are listening to right now in their bedroom, and you don't even know that they're upstairs listening to it. And so he was not shy about confronting these issues. He built the largest congregation east of the Mississippi River and the second largest in the country. Now, that was before the mega churches, but he was a Presbyterian pastor. If you want some chicken soup for the soul, go to Columbia Seminary, search for Frank Harrington. All of his sermons are there. And I miss him so dearly. He was one of the finest, greatest people I've ever known. And I truly looked to him for inspiration when I was a young married guy raising a family. I was just blessed to have found him. I didn't agree with everything he said, and he made me uncomfortable and made other people uncomfortable at times. But it was his duty. It was his job to make us think and to question and to look at the other side and the Christian answer to many of these issues. So if you're a pastor, don't shy away from it. Don't run from it. Run to it would be my answer. And I appreciate what you're doing so much, Raj. You know, an observation. You know, I have a charity that I started in Atlanta in 2006 called the Friends of English Avenue. And this organization seeks to rehabilitate the worst zip code in America. You name a social ill, it is there. Unemployment, hunger, homelessness, disease, joblessness, HIV, largest concentration of HIV per capita of any place in America. It is a food desert. Access to food is a real challenge. Access to medical treatment is a challenge, although there are a lot of organizations that are working in that community now and are working to lift it up. Progress has been made, but there's a lot of work to be done. But it put me in touch with the churches in the neighborhood. In this 60 square block area, there are 22 churches. And a lot of the work that we have done, we did it in cooperation and collaboration with the churches. So I sat through a fair number of church services in predominantly, virtually exclusive African-American congregations. And they're not afraid to talk about politics. In fact, just real quickly, I got to know Dr. Joseph Lowery. And I happened to like Dr. Lowery. And I thought that even though his politics were way far left from mine, I liked his commonsensical approach, and I did not consider him to be a divisive person. Although I will tell you that one day I'm sitting in church and Dr. Lowery was the guest speaker. And he said, now I'm telling you, everybody out there, you better go register to vote. And you better get your aunts and your uncles and your friends and your nieces and nephews and your cousins, get them to vote. It's your duty. You've got to get everybody you know registered to vote. And you can tell them that if they don't vote Democratic, they're going to go straight to hell. And you can tell them Dr. Lowery said so. Now, I've stiffened and bowed my back because I'm everything but that. And I actually resented it that someone would use the pulpit to be that partisan and invoke the name of God, even though I think that he was half joking. I didn't laugh, but that's what we're up against. And so our clergy has got to be emboldened to come to the rescue of our country and help lead their parishioners in the right direction. Don't tell them to vote Republican. I wouldn't be as partisan as Dr. Lowery was, but just get them to vote. Get them to vote. And I appreciate what you're doing, Raj, to do just that.
The importance of getting people to vote and getting people engaged, you mentioned it's such a vivid, clear picture there. A couple of stats right now where I live, it's a very Republican location. Historically, people have voted Republican here the entire time, and I recognize that some of the viewers here may be independents, you may be Democrats, you may be Republicans. The thing that I wanted to mention, because of the story you just mentioned, John, is right now in many very conservative areas, and this is Florida, by the way, where we have Republican governor, a super conservative majority here, Republican supermajority, over 80% of the vote by mail requests that are coming in from Democrats. In addition to that, the Democrats that are requesting the vote by mail are Democrats who have not voted for years. So just consider the math there. What is happening is the Democratic Party is being highly effective in re-engaging their dormant Democratic members. People have not voted.
Well, you're being more charitable than I would. That sounds like here we go again with ballot harvesting and stuffing the ballot boxes with non-legitimate practices to get votes into the process. So I hope that what you're saying is right. Look, if they can invigorate the base and get them to come and vote, that's democracy. But just don't get absentee ballots for people who have not voted or not voting and fill them out and send them in. That is a violation of the law, and that's what my biggest fear is. I fear that the Democrats will do what they've done before, and they will cheat. Why would they do that? Because they got away with it without any consequence whatsoever. And anybody who tried to challenge them, we got 19 people in court in Fulton County right now because they tried to push back against a stolen election. Fonnie Willis prosecuting them for election interference. It is just enough to make you crazy. Well, listen, I want to thank I call him my associate producer, Den Black, up in Virginia, for bringing us together, Raj. I know that you all are friends, and he certainly promotes you. Tell us one more time, you got the Rally for Our Lives, October 11th in Venice. And then your website, tell me if I got it, www.honorhiscross.org.
Yes, honorhiscross.org. We'd really like to see you there. We'd like to get your assistance, people watching, to get that event put into these 30 counties. So please do contact us, text the word DEFEND to 91776, or you can follow us on our social media that I think your producer will be putting on the screen here as well.
Well, thank you so much. We were talking to Raj Doraisamy, and he is a fine opinion leader that comes at it from a theological perspective. And I think Raj has got it figured out, I hope, and I wish you every success. And sincerely, thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, John. It's such a pleasure to have been here. It's so great to be on your show.
Thank you, Raj. And you're listening to The Truth. I'm John Gordon. We come to you every Saturday at noon on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We are in Memphis, Nashville, Atlanta, Richmond, Norfolk, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the entire state of West Virginia. We also come to you on the CDM Media Network. They have 13 worldwide digital platforms. Their philosophy is telling the truth. It gets them throttled, it gets them censored, but we are honored to be presented on their platform. If I could ask you to do just a small little favor, if you would go to one of our websites, find us on Getter.com, Rumble.com, YouTubeLive.com. Hit the live button on any one of those. Search for John Gordon Truth and just hit that subscribe button. Like us if you do. It will help us expand our reach. That's The Truth. I'm John Gordon. Have a great weekend, everybody.